Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar today. I am Abram Kielsmeyer Jones. This is Searches in Accordance Basic to Intermediate, Part 8. I am using these 8 sessions to help orient us to searching for words, verses, phrases, and more in accordance. This has been a multi-part series starting with basic searches, and we've moved up to an intermediate level, maybe beyond that. I suppose what's basic, what's intermediate is in the eye of the user, but certainly if you've been through these sessions or even some of them, you hopefully will be much better equipped to use Accordance for all kinds of searches. Today, we get a little bit more complicated with the merge command and the text command. I also just want to note that in this handout, which I am showing on the screen and which it looks like folks are able to download, so thank you for that confirmation. This handout is available to you in the GoToWebinar control panel, and we'll talk about this, what's here in just a minute. But if you are here live, GoToWebinar control panel is the interface that we use. So click on where it says handouts, just make sure that triangle is pointed down and you'll see this. If you are watching this on a recording, you can email me for the handout, abramkj@accordancebible.com. But I put a whole slew of useful links here. The first one is the one that I click on the most, which is Accordance help files. And we will draw from that today, so I'll revisit that. But that is some of the most extensive written documentation I've ever seen on any app. And so any question you've got is probably answered somewhere in there. And if it's not, we've got the Accordance forums. And it's been interesting, even in the last couple of weeks, I've seen a couple of users put questions there on how do I search for this? Or this is what I'm trying to do. What's the best way to use Accordance? And because we've got a worldwide user base all on different time zones, usually within 24 hours or 12 hours, there's some kind of a response there. So the forums are great for questions like this. Hey, I've been to all 8 parts now of the webinar and I still can't figure out how to do this. Pose your question there, crowdsourcing, and there's often a pretty quick turnaround on that. And then I've also put all 7 parts of this series hyperlinked here in the handout. And if you want to click on those, it'll just ask for your name and email just so that you can view the recording. I don't think that's stored anywhere to my knowledge. Certainly it's not shared. But once you access, once you sign in there with name and email, you can watch all of the recordings there. And there are transcripts to the recordings. So if you want to speed watch it or skim watch it or skip ahead, you don't just have to watch the recording itself. You can actually use the transcript. All right. I want to do an overview of what we've done so far, and then we'll dive into the new stuff for today. But first, let me just check in with you and see if you've got any comments or questions. Thanks for the confirmation that you're seeing my screen, hearing me, and have the handout. If you want to communicate with me throughout this time, the questions box is what you can use. It's like a one-way typed chat. Just type your question in there, and I will see it and respond at some point, either individually or I might anonymously share your question with the group and respond that way. So if there are no questions, we will dive in. This has been an 8-part series, and again, I'm calling it basic to intermediate because one thing we have not done is the construct search. That's a whole other kind of searching in Accordance. It's but BibleWorks had something called the graphical search engine. It's similar to that. Of course, Accordance has its own way of doing it, but that's what it is. It is a visual way of compiling a search more than just this search string that we're doing. That, I think, takes us into deeper territory, and we do have recorded webinars for that. But short of the construct search, we've covered just about everything in searching in Accordance. I'm sure there are some use cases we haven't, but we started in part 1 by just doing an introduction to searching and talking about the 2 main ways we might search in Accordance. One is by verses, one is by words. Searching by verses, there are some cool things you can do with that, but it's fairly straightforward, and we were able to cover that in one session. Searching by words is really what's taken up the rest of our time. we talked in part 2 about connecting search commands. And so if I open up Accordance, it's going to open to my default search window, search tab. The connecting commands are here. When you go to the search entry area, right click, enter command. We will be using this a lot today, as we have every time, but the connecting commands is this first series of commands right above the gray dividing line. And those we used, we went through on the second part of this webinar. And I've said before that these are the commands that I think are probably going to be logical whether you've used Accordance or not. And so they are things like and, or, not, XOR, followed by, preceded by, within. These are commands that the names of them describe pretty clearly what they are without much ambiguity, and they would be commands that you might use in other apps, whether it's another search-based app or even if you're constructing a symbolic logic problem or a proof or something like that. So these are all pretty straightforward. We reviewed them in part 2 and talked about the different ways to use them. And then in part 3, we started working our way through what was underneath that gray dividing line, and these are standalone commands. So these top ones are connecting commands, and as the name implies, they connect a word to another word or phrase or what have you. Here now are standalone commands, and I've made the point too that this gets a little bit more Accordance specific. So the word link doesn't by itself tell you what that does until you learn how Accordance uses it. Same with contents, hits, infer, and all the rest. So we've been spending the time to unpack each of those: range, count, link, contents, hits, infer, fuzzy, topic, style, key, field, and that took us through part 7. The range command narrowing down a specific portion of the text, the count command having to do with word frequency in a text, the link command being a way to link different texts to each other and basically replicate one command in another text just by saying link this. Contents had to do with verses, hits had to do with words. So here you are using the results of one search tab as a springboard for another search tab. And actually what we're doing today is somewhat similar to that. We talked about the infer command, which is a great way to look at common language between texts. We spent the whole session of part 5 and part of part 6 on that, if you want to go back. The fuzzy search, that one's a little bit more self-explanatory. It allows you to drop a word or two from the search string to make your search more fuzzy. The topic search we talked about, that's Accordance specific. Style having to do with highlights, the key number having to do with tagging, field having to do with the beginning and end of a sentence or clause or verse or chapter. And then we've been chipping away at search symbols throughout. We'll actually pick up there today. But there is your 5-minute overview of what has been 7 hours of webinars, and I just wanted to make sure folks were on the same page of where we've been, whether you've been at those webinars or not. And again, they're all there if you want to access them. I can also email you the handout if you email me at abramkj@accordancebible.com. I'd be happy to send that to you. So we're going to move into search symbols today, just a little bit of review on that and the couple things we haven't covered, and then the text command and the merge command. But before we do, let me just check in with you again, see if you've got questions or comments on anything that we've covered so far, and then we'll move ahead into some new territory. This is going to be the last official webinar of this series. I offered it around this time last year. I'm imagining that we'll do it again, hopefully. And so we're going to wrap up with search symbols, text command, and merge command. Let's talk about the search symbols. So if we go to our search entry area, which is this box right here, right click, and we have enter command right here, and this is what we've been using over and over again. Right underneath that is enter symbol. And we've talked through most of these and used them. You know, the beauty of searching in Accordance, I've been kind of demoing these commands, many of them by themselves, so we could see how they work in their purest form. But you can build these commands on each other. We've had some examples where we've done some within commands with an asterisk and a range. So you're looking for part of a word within 3 words of part of another word in just the Gospels. And so we build these commands on each other. So as we've been doing that, we've been using things like the wildcard, separating items in a list, this dash for range or negate. I just want to point you to the help files on the search symbols. If I copy that link, I can open up a file, new tab, web browser. Let me just put that there. This gives you the drop-down window that you just saw, but it's got detailed explanations of everything. So I'm sharing this with you so that if you're interested in going into further detail, you can. I want to just kind of conclude search symbols with a brief overview today. But we've covered most of these through the series. I want to highlight a couple things today. That equal symbol, so if I right-click, enter symbol, equals, that varies depending on what you're using. So what it does is going to change depending on what kind of text or tool you're in. You may remember that Accordance, very broadly speaking, divides modules into text, which are primary text, and then there are tools, which are secondary text, essentially. There's also databases, but if you're searching with the equal sign, it's going to do different things depending on where you are. And without spending a lot of time on this, I will just point you again to the help files and say that if you are in a non-tagged text, it does one thing. So if I'm in a text that is not grammatically tagged, it's going to be more exact in terms of punctuation, hyphens and apostrophes. If you're using a tagged text, it's going to function a little bit differently. And if you're using a tool, it's going to function a little bit differently. So all of that is detailed here. This gets into some more specific searches. It especially gets you into original language searches, searching for inflected forms versus lexical forms. Also, this potentially gets you into the realm, once we use the period symbol, you're looking at things like the vowel pointing in Hebrew, cantillation marks, Greek diacritics, all of which is wonderful and exceeds the scope of what I'm trying to do today. So just know that you've got some more detailed symbols that can help you make your searches more specific. I want to highlight one of these uses though. The equal symbol can be especially helpful if you are searching tools for a specific Bible verse referenced and not just a range. So here's what I mean. If I open up my library and let's say I've got a 1-volume commentary, or even better, let's say I've got Dictionary of Jesus and the Gospels. That's a pretty specific dictionary. It is alphabetically organized, A through Z, and but you can also search it by scripture. So maybe I've downloaded this module and I want to see, well, what does the Dictionary of Jesus and the Gospels have to say about John 3:16? Pretty safe assumption that that verse not only is in there, but that it's actually referenced with a reference. So I changed the search field to scripture, and I'm going to type in John 3:16, hit enter, and you've got 41 hits, but notice that these hits, one of them here, for example, is John 1 through 4, and that's just a reference in a bibliography, but it's doing what I asked it to do. Another one, believers are children of God. Here's 3 through 16, and that's great and that's relevant, but without a further specifier, the way that Accordance reads search this tool for this scripture, John 3:16, is it's also going to give you a positive hit for these ranges, which to me is logical, and I think that's actually a good decision on the programmer's part, because if you're researching John 3:16, presumably you're going to want to see content that has to do with the passage that John 3:16 is in. So you've got 41 exact hits. They're going to be, some of them ranges. Here's another one. They're is also going to be John 3:16 when it's mentioned by itself. So it will do all of the above. So that's fine, but suppose you want to just see those references where it says John 3:16, and maybe you don't want to navigate through 41 hits that also include ranges. Here's the equal sign. If you put the equal sign in front of the reference, that's one use of the search symbol. And now you could right click, enter command, and or enter symbol and put the equal sign in there. You can also just type it from your keyboard. No need to go through that dialogue with the drop down menus. Now watch, my 41 hits are going to drop because without the equal sign, it's searching John 3:16 and anywhere John 3:16 occurs within a range. The equal sign is only searching John 3:16. Now I go down to 17 hits, and all of them will show me just John 3:16. I suspect you all, especially who have been using Accordance for some time, have other ways of using search symbols. For me, that is probably what I use the equal sign for the most often. And again, if I'm just looking at an individual verse and want to find it referenced in a tool, that equal sign saves me some time and gets me right there. Now, I may, after doing that, delete the equal sign and then look for the range. But that's one way that you can use a symbol to help make your study more focused, more specific. And yeah, let me just say again, we talked about the period symbol last time and how that allows you to search basically for characters. And so the example we used was, let me find all of the times that there is a question mark in a text. And so I'm going to open up a Bible text. Here's the NET Bible. And I noted this last time. If I just type in the question mark, that is a search symbol. So right click, enter symbol, question mark, character wildcard. So if I type that in, it's just going to find a single character of any kind. So that question mark being typed in once is one character, and the question mark means find anything that's one character. So all of my hits are going to be one character that are words. So I don't know what else there would be. I suppose the word O in the Psalms, if the translation uses that. And so, yeah, here's O. But that's not what I was wanting to do by searching the question mark. If I want to find the questions, what I need to do is put the period in front of it. So you're using two different symbols. Well, actually, you're using one symbol. You're using the find next character symbol. That's what period means. And then the question mark now Accordance is not interpreting it as a symbol. That is to say, Accordance is not reading my question mark anymore as a character wildcard. It's reading it as a question mark because I've fronted it with find next character. So now what I'm going to see is all of the question marks in this text. I can make this a little bigger to see, but they're in red and bold because that's what my default is for how hits show up. So all of the question marks in a text are now showing up there. If I wanted to search all of the questions in the Gospels, for example, then I'd go in and I'd add a range, enter command range. This is just a little bit of review, Matthew through John, and now I've got all the question marks in the Gospels. If I wanted to find all the times that Jesus asked questions, that's going to be a little bit less exact of a search, and I might need to do some trial and error, but I might start with something like enter command within, I don't know, 5 words of Jesus. Again, that's not going to be exact, but maybe it will give me some good hits to start with. It may not at the same time, but yeah, you can play with that. And you can see how we can build all these commands on each other. We've got search symbols, range within, multi-word search, but that period there is what you're going to use if you want to search different characters. And that's why I say, just to refer you to the help files, if you want to use this with Hebrew and Greek, that would be more advanced. And I'd recommend the help files there. I've seen some recent questions on the forums about that too, but the period symbol is pretty powerful. So I want to highlight that one in particular. All right, I'm going to stop there with search symbols. I know there's a lot more that we could say, and again, the help files are there, but let me check in with you and see if you've got comments or questions, and then we'll move into the text command and then the merge command. Oh, sure. Yeah, somebody said, let me put this in the chat. Somebody asked if I could go over again how I brought up another web browser and cut and pasted the link. Yeah, and in Accordance, there is under File, New Tab, Web Browser. And by the way, these menus are wonderfully comprehensive, maybe frustratingly complex. Well, I don't know if they're complex, but there's a lot to them. So you can always go to the help menu and just type in like web browser, and that will take you to the menu item. So you could learn where it is, file, new tab, web browser. You can also put it in your toolbar. So right here, that's another way to get it. So I might recommend those easier ways. But once you've got it open, then it's just like Safari or Chrome or whatever you might use. And so I copy and pasted from the handout, right click, copy, and then just pasted that in. I'll need to actually copy the link here, but you get the idea. And then that will take you to whatever URL you want to paste in there. So yes, you can get it from the file menu, new tab, but you can also just search web browser under help and it will open it up for you. And then there's web browser in the toolbar. And this is limited compared to a fully orbed web browser, which I actually like because when I'm in Accordance, this keeps me more focused. I can still look up lots of stuff, but even seeing the web browser in Accordance reminds me, I'm using Accordance right now. I'm not, checking the basketball brackets, which I will probably do after I use Accordance that day, but it keeps me a little bit more focused. So that web browser is useful for sure. All right, let me see other comments or questions. Yeah, the web link that shows the help section, right. So I would, let me see where that was. Right, click copy link, that's what I did, yeah. So then I just paste that into the browser and it takes you there. You don't need to do it that way though with the help files. The help files, you can also just go to help in Accordance help, and it will open the browser for you here in Accordance. So that's another way to do it. Here's a comment. I'm going to put this in the chat. Somebody says, here is an interesting use of search symbols to find palindromes of size 6. So that's 4 question marks. Well, I'll just put it in the chat that rather than read it out loud, but and then I can try this in my own web browser here. Yeah, the symbols allow you to do kind of some fun stuff. So these are 6-character palindromes, if that's of interest to you. And that's basically got where there's 6 total question marks that account for 6 characters, and it's equating the first and the last and then the middle 2 with each other using those equals and the numbers to talk about the position of the word. Yep, that is from David Lang, who is the expert when it comes to searching. He's who I go to with my questions, and he's on the forums sometimes too. So you might see a response from him. All right, let's move into the text command, and then we'll spend some time on the merge command. I think that the text command is significantly easier to use than the merge command. The merge command is going to allow some more fine-tuned searching, especially if you're doing, well, exclusively really, if you're doing work with the Hebrew Bible and the Septuagint. And as I've done this session, I mean, we've used Greek and Hebrew. I've tried to use more English language examples just to kind of keep this at a universal, more basic level. Merge command will be the exception to that because you would only be using that with the Septuagint. But the text command you can really use across multiple languages and translations, and it's a really neat command. It's similar to the merge command. They really do a lot of the same things. The way that the text or the help files put it is the text command is used to perform cross-textual searches in grammatically tagged text and keyed Bible texts. So here's the example that the help files use, and I've linked to that here. It says the ESVS, so the ESV with Strong's, that is a tagged text with Strong's numbers, which means, let me just unpack this because this helps to understand it. It's tagged with Strong's numbers, so what that means is that when I hover over the word genealogy, I see genesis for the Greek that it's translating, but it is not a grammatically tagged text. So I don't see, for example, that this is a singular noun in English. I do get the Greek tagging, but that's because it's piggybacking off of the Greek New Testament grammatical tagging. In other words, you could not, without the text command, you could not say, find all imperative verbs in the ESV. It is just not tagged that way. And so the text command allows you to search for imperative verbs, basically piggybacking off of the information that's in the Greek New Testament. So let me, this is a different example here, but let's just use this particular example. So here's how you would do this. So again, the goal is I want to find all the imperative verbs in the ESV with Strong's. And if I were to ask you, how do you do that with what we've learned so far? There is not an answer because it's not possible. But with the text command, it is possible. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the NA28, a Greek text, to do this search. Because if I were to say, here, let's split this up. If I were to say, find all the imperative verbs in the Greek New Testament, that would be a little bit easier. We have not talked about the tag search, but it's simple enough. It's under enter command and enter symbol. There's enter tag. If I wanted to search for all the imperative verbs in the Greek New Testament, it's in there. It's tagged that way. Whereas in the ESV, you'll notice that enter tag, there's nothing for me to select there. There's a right pointing arrow under symbol that leads to a submenu, so I can do all of those that are available, but I can't do the tag, whereas I can in the NA28. So quick overview of tag, go to enter tag, find what you want. You want a verb. Now you're going to get a submenu. Maybe you are surprised to see all the different ways you can specify a verb in accordance, but we just want mood, which is where imperative lives. And the way to know this is, you know, a semester of grammar will give you a sense of how these drop-down menus work. So this is Greek specific here at this point. So you would search for imperative, click OK, and now it fills in the syntax verb imperative. So I'm going to search the Greek New Testament for all imperative verbs, and they're all there. Now, if I were to take this and paste it into here, no, it's not going to happen. It doesn't recognize what I'm searching for because it says here. So if I thought I was doing a workaround, you know, these tag commands were not available. But if I got the search string from here and pasted it in, thought I was doing a clever workaround, well, that is clever, but it doesn't work because grammatical tag commands cannot be used because this text does not have grammatical tags. In other words, there is nowhere anywhere in this module in the code, at least that we're aware of, where it says what's an imperative verb. All right, so that's the dilemma theoretically, but it's very easily solved in accordance with the text command. Basically, what I'm going to do is run this search in the ESV. And this is helpful because maybe I haven't had that semester of Greek. Maybe I'm not familiar with all of the things I need to know to run a search in a Greek text. So what you'll do, you'll start over. You've got a blank search entry area. You will go to right click, go to enter command, which is where we've been living for the last couple months, and you're going to do the text command. And let me just take this opportunity, as I often do, to say there are other ways to use this, to get this command in. There's a keyboard shortcut here. You could also go to search, enter command, text. I don't know. Yeah, actually, you can start typing this one too, T-E-X-T. All right, so however we get that, one of those 4 ways, let's right click, enter command, text. Now I'm going to use the text command. This command is a little different from some of the others because if I right click and enter command and do, say, fuzzy, it just fills in the search string with a little highlighted area for me to fill out. This one's a little bit more involved. Right click, enter command, text. I'm going to hit enter. And now I have a couple of decisions to make. It's asking me, what text do you want to use kind of as your intermediary to piggyback off of? And I'm going to use this NA28 Greek text. So my goal here right now, I want to search this English standard version for imperative verbs using some text that I know is tagged with imperative verbs. Well, I just saw that the NA28 is, and maybe you know that already, but if you weren't sure, you could try it out. Yeah, that looks like a really good search. So I'm going to find that text from my drop-down menu, NA28. And now you see a flashing cursor there. So I can enter my search string here, and I can enter any number of things. We'll use some other examples, but what I want is a tag. And by the way, notice you can enter commands here too. So you can do, I mean, talking about nesting different things together that we've done. I mean, you can really do some sophisticated searches. But I just want enter tag. And I'm going to go down to verb. This is where I was getting this for the NA28 before. And imperative is under mood. So I'm going to do imperative, click OK. By the way, now that you've seen how this text search is constructed, if you don't remember where the tag is, you can just type bracket verb imperative. That will work. But I can also go to enter tag verb, and it's under mood imperative. Okay. All right, now I'm going to run my search, and what it's about to do, I mean, as soon as I click OK, it's going to do it. But it's going to search the NA28 for all imperative verbs, which I can see this over here. And it's going to return the results in my source text. I'm searching this from the ESV. This is where I started the text command, if you remember. So I don't want to be distracted by having this open here. In fact, I'm just going to close this now. So my search text is ESV. That's this menu here. And my search entry area, all ESV, enter command text. And I got the NA28 from here, enter tag, verb, mood, imperative. All right, so there's my search ready to run. So it's going to search the NA28 for all imperative verbs, which I know will work because I just did it, and it's going to return the results in the text that I'm searching from, which is the ESV. Hit enter. There's the syntax. And I've got search, I've got word, which is really bring me word. I've got take, I've got flee, I've got remain. And as you go through these, you could just do a quick spot check. Are these imperative verbs? Well, repent, yes. Prepare, yes. Make, bear, let, command, throw. These are all imperative verbs. And the ESV is not tagged this way, but the GNT28 is. And if I just wanted to do this again, I could see verb, mood, imperative, hit enter, and I've got the search here that I can see side by side, although really what would be more useful is to open it up in parallel this way. And then you can even see with the cross highlighting what is the corresponding Greek word if you want to, but it may be that you just want to see this in English. That's the text command in short. It's allowing you to access information that's in another text in the text that you're searching. And so it's kind of a dual text command. It will display the results in whatever you searched it for. We could have done an English to English command as well. Maybe you want to see, I don't know, let's take the NRSV with Strong's, and maybe maybe we just search the word love here, but maybe you want to see all of the times that the King James has the word love, and how is it translated in the NRSV? So interestingly, we have like for love here, but we have a lot of love for love. So if your question is, and some of these are like very specific use cases, maybe it's not something you would use, maybe it's something that you never knew was possible, and it sounds great. What I'm doing now is I'm saying find in the NRSV all the times that the King James has love, and give me the results in the NRSV. I know I did that kind of quickly, but it was the same sequence. Right click, enter command, text command. What text are you wanting to search? I want the King James. And then what is the word? I don't need a tag here. I just want love. Or we could do what we've done before, maybe make an asterisk. You can play with that search if you want. But it's giving me the results in the NRSV. And it can do this because they are both not tagged grammatically, but they're both tagged with key numbers. So both of these texts, and you can see this if I open up the King James, there's a cross highlighting there that will also work with the Hebrew. So that when I hover over this like here in Genesis 27:4, I can see that in the King James it's love, and in the BHS it comes from ahav, which often is translated love. Love and like being two different things, but we might wonder, why did the NRSV give us like for ahav? Well, maybe, I don't know, maybe it's because it's talking about food, and maybe you love people but you like food. I don't know what the translation philosophy was there, but you can compare English translation to English translation as long as they have this key number tagging here, that it will allow you to cross highlight and see, and most of the time you're going to get love for love, but sometimes you will not. You could even use the analytics to look at some of the differences here to see what's going on. But that's another possible use case for the text command. We can do more with original languages. Let me actually just pause there. Those are just, there's so many possible ways you could use the text command. One is English against Greek, or English against Hebrew, or English to English. You can do Hebrew to Greek, which we'll move into next, but let me just check in with you and see if you've got questions. This is one of those commands where, for me, it took me, and maybe you're quicker on the uptake than I am, it took me a while to understand the logic of it. And I had been using Accordance for a while when the text command came out, so I already had other ways to do this kind of search. But once I figured it out, I actually can use it really quickly, and there's not a whole lot of friction to it once you get used to that dialog box. And you can see the search string itself is very simple, so it's a useful command. But let me check in with you. Oh, interesting. Here, I'll just anonymously share this, because this is really cool. Somebody said, I did the same imperative search just in the NA28 for the imperatives in the Sermon on the Mount for a sermon this Sunday night. I love that. That's a great example, yeah, of a use case. Excellent. Thank you for sharing that. Let's see. Analytics showed 50 imperatives and 30 different verbs. That's from that same search example. Yeah, and I would consider something similar too if I was thinking about, like, what if I'm preaching on something, what Bible do people have in the pews? Well, they probably don't have a Greek Bible. So yes, I'm going to search the Greek Bible and study that. But yeah, that text command allows you to say something like, you've got 50 imperatives in the Bible, and you're referencing an English text that maybe people already have or that they bring on their own. So that's great. Thank you for sharing that example. I love to hear that. Somebody says, let me put this anonymously in the chat, you have unlocked the mystical logic of the text command. Thank you. Oh, you're welcome, and I'm happy to hear that. And I'm serious when I say that I don't know what it was, but it really took me a while to figure this out. It just wasn't clicking with me. So I think the best I can say is practice. The way that I learned the text command, I mean, all appreciation to David Lang again. He is responsible for these tutorials in Accordance. That these are excellent, by the way. I don't know that I've mentioned these in this series, but if you go to the help file, as you know, there's lots of stuff here, but there's an interactive feature called tutorials. And if you go to commands, you will find much of what we've done already. Now he goes farther with the construct search here, which I've said we've not done in these series, but he's got some interactive tutorials with the text command. Now these are not video tutorials, these are actually interactive in app. So we might do a Hebrew one now, and I'll just walk us through this. This will also give us another example, but it's also to say, if you want to practice this on your own, these tutorials are a great way to do that. So I'll go to help, tutorials, exploring Hebrew with the text command. All right, now look how this kind of takes over my screen. Accordance is still open. It's still the foregrounded app, and it says this tutorial will teach you how to use the text command to explore the Hebrew behind an English Bible. And it's a 31-step tutorial. That sounds like it takes a long time. You can do everything it tells you. First, open this translation. Well, you know how to do that, but you can also say, do it for me. And it did it. Enter Genesis in the go-to box, do it for me, press the return key to go to Genesis. So he's just getting to where he wants to be. Now, choose BHS Hebrew from the Add Parallel pop-up menu. And now this is explaining how it works, kind of what we talked about already. I'm going through this quickly, but now he kind of walks you through how you enter a command, which again is what we just did. But here now what he's doing is he's searching for hine, something to do with some kind of favor or grace, and we're going to just keep doing it for me. Continue until we run the command. Okay, I'm sorry, it's behold. I had consonants mixed up. Yeah, hine, like hineni. So behold. So now all of the ways that this particle hine gets translated, we've got behold in the ESV here. It's going to mostly be behold. But that's another good way to use it. And I won't go through all of this, but he talks about the analytics and how to see kind of a list of the different ways it's translated. So once again, just to show that particular piece, help, tutorials, commands, you'll find actually, I mean, if you want to review some of the other stuff we've done, but it's comparing translations, which we did, exploring Greek, which we did a little bit, and then exploring Hebrew. So those are excellent, and that is how I learned how to use the text command. The help files were great, but it didn't click for me until I used that. So hopefully that's helpful to somebody. Let's search a Septuagint text for a Hebrew word. So, and this kind of moves us now into the merge command, but it's a much simpler way to do a similar thing. Let's say that I want to find all the ways that the Septuagint translates the Hebrew achav, or I just want to see it everywhere it occurs. So the Hebrew word achav, roughly speaking, is to love. I mean, that's a pretty common translation equivalent. Depending on the context, it could have these other nuances. We saw that the NRSV gave us like when it had to do with food, but there's some kind of, you know, affectionate, emotional, active response. So I am going to search the Septuagint for achav, which sounds funny because achav is a Hebrew word, but remembering that the Septuagint is a translation of the Hebrew Bible, I want to see this translation question. So to do this, you might think to yourself for just a moment, which text do I want to open first if I'm running a search command to find a Hebrew word translated in the Septuagint? And the answer is you want to open up the Septuagint text. That's where you want to see the results. You're looking for the result in Greek in this case. So that's step one. Which text do I open? All right, there it is. And now step two is let's get that text command. Step three is what am I searching? What text am I using as my kind of, I don't know, piggyback is the best word I can think of. I'm sure there's a better technical term, but what text am I searching against, or what text tagging am I drawing from for the search? Well, pick any Hebrew text for this. And now you'll need to type in the characters. So we've got Aleph, Hey, Beit. Okay. and it filled in the syntax for me. I've got this in, you could even just copy paste this in, by the way. It's interesting when you, well, that copy paste might get tricky, but it's a funny command in the sense that now the word text doesn't occur in here. And the help files note this, all the other commands, I mean, you've got the search string will occur outside of it, but here it's actually in the brackets. So anyway, let me hit enter. I'm telling it find in the Septuagint all of the times that it translates Ahav. And I've got bold and red, and I've got some form of agapao here, and here, and here, and here, and here's from phileo. So that's interesting. So it is not the case that every time Ahav occurs, agapao also occurs. And again, you can get into the analytics for this, but now what I've got here is just a list of Ahav, but the results showing up in the Septuagint. Now for me, if I were really going to delve into these results, what would be most useful is to build up this workspace. So I'm going to want to see a Hebrew text next to this. So here's phileo, and I can confirm, not that I didn't trust my results, but I can confirm with cross highlighting that that is a form of Ahav right here. I might also even open up an English translation of the Septuagint so I can see that. I might even also open up an English translation of the Hebrew Bible. You can even drag and drop these. Actually, I'm going to move this one down. Move this one down. And now what I've got is Greek text here, Hebrew text here, and their corresponding English translations as I make my way through the results. Now the bold and red, the hit words are only going to show up in the search text. So there's nothing in bold and red anywhere else because I've searched the Septuagint text. So all of my hit words are in Greek, but it's searched for this Hebrew word, and the cross highlighting is going to work across LXX, BHS, and NRSV. Unfortunately, it does not work with the NETS because that is not a key number text, but you can still get an idea of how this word gets translated. That brings us to the merge command, and I'm just mindful of the time, and I'm wondering whether it's possible to do a merge command in 10 minutes. We can try. I know I said this was the last part, and it may still be, it may not be, but let me just stop and check in with you. First of all, see if you have questions. I don't want to rush past the text command. It's so powerful, and I'm sure there are other use cases I haven't thought of, but let me just check in with you and see what questions you have about the text command. And let me just remind you too, as you think about it, if you've got questions, that you can build on, I mean, you could construct a more complicated search that would be something like Ahav, you know, when it's first person, or the noun form of this root. I mean, you can get more complex even within this search area. I might leave that for you to experiment with, but let me know if you've got other questions about the text command more fundamentally. Otherwise, let's see how far we get with the merge command. David Lang, once again, he is not sponsoring this webinar, but I wouldn't be leading it without his wisdom. He's got 2 excellent summary blog posts here on the merge command. And I will say that this command, I still use it and really appreciate it. I think with the use of the text command now, you probably don't need the merge command as much. I mean, if your question is one of translation, what does Ahav look like in the Greek text? How do they translate it? You can get that with the text command. The merge command gets a little bit more fine-tuned. It's basically taking this parallel tool that Accordance has, the MTLXX parallel, that looks like this. So here's Psalm 23. Of course, the versification is different in the Septuagint. Here, that's Psalm 22. But you've got at left the Hebrew text and at right the Greek text that translates it. This is unpointed Hebrew, so that will require a little bit of figuring out, but you've got the Greek text here at right. And so basically you've got these columns that are showing you the translation equivalent, or showing you the translation, the Septuagint up against the Hebrew. Lots of footnotes that are explaining what's going on here. So for example, why am I seeing this Greek word here where I expected something else? Well, they've got reasons. And some of these are pretty scientific, ironclad reasons. Others, you have to speculate a little bit. You know, maybe they had a different text. And so you've got all these footnotes that are postulating why there might be a perceived difference in translation. So this is the MT-LXX parallel tool. What the merge command does is it basically allows you to run advanced searches building off of tagged Hebrew and Septuagint text. So this is a similar problem as what the text command was designed to address. So the downside to this MT-LXX parallel tool is that if I want to search for a Ahav, I can, but it's only going to find those exact characters. It is not a grammatically tagged text. So it found Ahav, and there's that phileo. There's this at that same verse about liking the food. It looks like it must be. Yeah. But this is unpointed, and it's only going to show me this exact combination of consonants. So it's not going to show me ahavti, I loved, or something like that. So basically, the merge command allows you to piggyback off of these grammatically tagged Hebrew texts and Greek texts to run searches in the MT-LXX parallel. So now that the text command, I mean, it's a little bit anachronistic because the merge command came first. But now that the text command exists, you could kind of think about this in terms of the logic of it. You're basically using the text command across both Greek and Hebrew to run searches in the MT-LXX parallel. And I'm seeing now this is probably going to require its own webinar. So let's do this. Let me take just a couple more minutes to continue to share about this feature. So that by the time we're done at the top of the hour, you'll have a basic understanding of it. And then I will offer, think of it as an excursus maybe rather than a part 9 that is just on the merge command. In fact, I've done that before apart from this series. So we'll spend a whole hour sometime in the near future discussing the merge command, and that will be more specialized in terms of Hebrew and Greek. And so we'll use some examples, and I'll get that scheduled soon. But the short version of it is what you're doing here is you are going to look for Ahav. This did not give me what I wanted if I wanted all inflections of it, all forms. So you're going to use the BHS. Now, when I search Ahav there, Ahav, I get more results because here's Ahavta, you loved. And so what the merge command allows me to do, it functions like the text search. I'm going to go back to the MT-LXX parallel, and I'm going to go to merge. Actually, let me do it. Right click, enter command, merge. Hebrew, by the way, this is a good time to not type because it gets all wonky with the left to right, although even there you get the quick entry. So if you're used to typing, you can do it. But you can also right click, enter command, merge. Select tab to merge. Well, I already have it open. I want this one. Click OK. Merge BHS tagged. So it's going to basically search for, again, it's like the text search. It's going to take this not grammatically tagged text, use this grammatically tagged text, search the results, bring them in here, and now I've got 223 results in, and you could do this, this doesn't need to be open. Now I've got this Ahavta, you have loved. That shows up now because of the merge command, even though this is not tagged. Look at my instant details. I'm just getting transliteration. The MT-LXX parallel tool is not grammatically tagged, but essentially I'm running a grammatically tagged search using the merge command. But see how similar that is to the text command. I think the text command was basically taking the logic of the merge command And I mean, I think it's more accessible now because the merge command is just for this tool. Actually, Accordance developed the merge command for the MT-LXX tool. They had this wonderful research tool, but it wasn't tagged by the authors who made it. And so they had to figure out a way to make it tagged essentially. So it was, I think, a brilliant programming workaround. That was the merge command. And then the text command is basically saying, well, let's do that with other texts that are not grammatically tagged. How would you search your English text for all imperative verbs when this English text doesn't come coded that way? So you can see the overlap here. But we'll spend more time in another session just on the merge command and walking through not only how to use it like the text command, but also how to get into some translation equivalents. Because one of my questions always is, how does the Septuagint render ahav throughout the whole Septuagint? We saw phileo. Is that common? I mean, it looks like a rarity, but how often does that happen? In what contexts? And so you can get some good data for these translation technique questions that come up. There is a long, well, it's just one page, but it's a multi-step kind of addition here to your handout that talks about using the merge command. And this is just another example. It's in Joshua 24:1, the Greek Phile tribe translates the Hebrew Shevet, and you may ask, how often does that happen? Well, here's a step-by-step way of answering that question for yourself. But we will make this a separate webinar so that we can go more in depth, because I think it takes about an hour to go through. And I did not want to shortchange the text command. But let's stop there with questions, and let me just say, you'll get, if you're on the email list, you'll get an announcement of when we do the merge command. Let me just ask you, I think there's probably interest, so I'm gonna try to do it, but if you would let me know either in the chat now or by emailing me, would you be interested in a 1 hour ask me anything, basically? Like, I don't want to call it stump the webinar instructor, because you surely will. So we might crowdsource, but the goal would be, let's spend an hour together with different searches that we have in mind, different things we want to do, and how would I make a search to do this? And so I would come with some examples, and you would come with some examples. So if you have interest in that, it would probably not have much of a handout. You know, it would be more you and less me, but the idea would be, how do we do X, Y, and Z in accordance? So coming with ideas, and then we try to figure out how to construct a search string. So if there's interest in that, please let me know. I'd love to offer that. So I'm hoping we'll do something like that. We'll do the merge command. Otherwise, we can consider that we've done in 8 parts what we did in 7 last year. I think if you've made it through this and tracked with this, again, as I said at the beginning, I hope you feel much better equipped how to do searching in accordance. And there's always more to use, or always more to learn. I find that if I don't use it, I tend to forget it. So I personally appreciate these webinars as a chance to refresh my own searching abilities in accordance. All right, let me end the recording, but I'm going to stay on because I see questions and I want to respond to them. But let me just go ahead and end the recording. If you were watching the recording, you can email me, abramkj@accordancebible.com, for the handout or any other questions you have.